Hello and welcome, and thank you so much for joining us for OFIA's Healthy School Certification webinar that's all about the February deadline. If at any time you can't hear me, just give a holler in the chat room. My name is Sarah Meissen, and I'll be co-presenting this webinar with my fellow Healthy School Certification crew, Margaret Good and Jennifer Muir. We're very pleased to have a special guest as well, who is here to answer some of your questions and share what he's learned through his experience with Healthy School Certification. So you'll see Victor Cass there, a secondary school teacher with Peel District School Board. So let's start with what you're seeing on your screen in the Adobe room. The PowerPoint presentation and then my screen sharing is on the left. The participant pod on the right at the top shows who's participating in the webinar. The chat pod right underneath that is a space for you to communicate as you've been doing, which is fantastic. We've muted all microphones to ensure that the webinar runs uninterrupted. Below we have a web links pod, so you see that right under the chat one, that will lead you directly to the Healthy School Certification website, as well as a quick survey to be completed after this webinar, so we thank you in advance for completing that survey. Please use the chat pod to type in your comments, to share your information, and or ask questions at any time during the webinar, so don't feel like you're interrupting at all. We'll address your questions throughout the webinar, but you can also connect with us at any time by email if you prefer at healthyschools@ofia.net. So that's HEALTHY schools, SCHOOLS, at ofia.net. So let's get started here. The agenda for today. The purpose of this peer sharing webinar is to answer any questions you might have about the February 17th, 2017 noon deadline to report on steps 1 through 3. So we call this the mid-year deadline, and to have you share with other registered schools your experience. Through an inquiry-based approach, we'll explore how to meet the reporting requirements to earn points towards certification. First, we'll walk you through the website and online dashboard. We'll highlight Healthy School support tools, which we call HSSTs, that could be of use, and share examples of what schools submitted last year to achieve certification. Most of the webinar will be dedicated to your comments and questions, which you can ask during the webinar in the chat pod to the right of your screen. Our goal is that you get the information and answers you need to successfully report well before the February 17th deadline. So we hope you've come prepared to ask questions. We'll do our best to answer them. We'll also give you the opportunity to ask other webinar participants questions and to share your suggestions and tips. If you prefer to join us simply to hear what other schools have to say, that's totally fine too. Victor's here as well if you would like to ask him questions directly about his experience with certification over the past couple of years. So let's get started here. So just give me a moment while I share my screen. I'm going to start you right from the beginning with logging in, which if you know how to do that, bear with me, but this can be a bit of a challenge to some. Okay, so hopefully you can see my blank screen right here. Opening up Chrome in this case, we suggest you do it in Chrome or Firefox and you avoid Internet Explorer. Sorry, we have some technical challenges here we're just quickly taking a look at. There we go. Bigger's better. Excellent. Thank you very much, Jen. Okay, so you would start off, if you have not already, by going to ofia.net. You can also go to ofia.net/hscertification, but if you haven't logged in yet, this is just your safest and easiest bet. You're going to hit login in the top right-hand corner. It's going to take you to the login page. This is possibly the most important piece of information I can give you. Make sure you use your username. So in my case, my username, not email, username is Meissen. I type in my password, which I will not share with you. I prove I'm not a robot. And then I prove it again. And then I hit login. So this needs to happen first. You cannot access your dashboard until you do this. So I know I've logged in because I can see my name up here where it used to say login. So once I've done that, I can click on Healthy School Certification, and suddenly a blue button appears here at the top, HS Certification Dashboard. If you go here not logged in or logged in as someone who does not have a school registered, that will not appear. So I click on HS Certification Dashboard, and voila, I am in. You'll see that this is personalized to me, my made-up school, and has all the information I need for the first deadline, the second deadline, and to submit. So I'm just going to take a moment here, walk you through what you can see, and then go through steps 1, 2, and 3. Again, please do enter your questions there. I can't see the chat, but Jen's monitoring that as we go. So when you come in here, you'll notice in your personal information, you'll also see where you're standing in terms of points. We want this to be completely transparent. You should know what you're applying for when you apply in April for certification. It should be very clear to you that you know how many points you have already. We also have an FAQ page. If you haven't checked it out, there are lots of information, a lot of answers to some common questions. But if you do still have a question, we are fantastic at helping you out. So we have the team here ready and available to answer any email questions around technology, or even if it's about supporting you in the different steps as well. And also we'd love to hear any success stories too. So feel free to reach out to us at any time. You have a quick link to the guidebook, which displays essentially all the information you're going to get in your steps in the dashboard, but in a quick, easy reference guide with some additional contextual information. We have links to the webinars that we've done before. So we have a general webinar and one for each step. If you haven't seen that already, they're already recorded, available in French and English there. And then we have the Healthy School Support tools that I'll talk about a little later on. We do highlight any new items in the news, and we have a hashtag specific for Healthy School Certification, which is HSCertES. And here you can take a look at the most recent posts, and you can see that there's quite a few. So great for tips and ideas of what to do, and then also for sharing your own successes or asking questions. I will mention that we have a change school contact. This is only if you are leaving your school or for some reason cannot remain the contact, you would press this button and follow those instructions. So maybe I'll pause for a second, see if there's any questions being asked in the chat. Nope, but we seem good to go. Okay, so I'm just going to dive right into step 1, establish your school team. So you'll see here that it's unlocked because in order to unlock a step, you have to have gone into the previous one. I've already gone into all of mine here, so they are all unlocked. It keeps a running total of how many points I have, and then I can also download all the information and keep that for my records. So step 1, establish your school team. I go through and I can check off each of these items as I go. So school contact, and the letter from the principal, vice principal, those are a given. Anything with the little red asterisk demonstrates that this needs to be submitted or completed. I'll go through and I will include the number of students who are part of my team. Sorry, these shouldn't be checked. I've been playing around in this. And then essentially I would go through and I would check off, say I have a secondary team. I would check off the grades corresponding to those students. I would include how many staff members, how many vice principal, principals, parents. If I don't have any parents, that's not a problem. You don't get the 10 points, but that's okay. You can just leave it blank. And you get essentially points for how many different audiences you have included, not the total number of each audience. So that's something to keep in mind. I take a look at the next question, which is discussing OFIA's Healthy Schools introductory video. So 20 points here. The only evidence we're looking for is the date that you watched it on. Our school has a guiding document. This could be anything, really, that makes sense for you, that makes sure that your team knows why they're there, what their roles and responsibilities are, and how they're going to work together. So you would go to upload a file, you would choose a file, and of course, our file seems to be missing. Gotta love technology. So I'm just going to very, very, very quickly create one here for you. And call this our guiding document. So it is a great idea, if you do have Google Drive or something like that, to try saving all your documents as you go. I know it's a little tough, as you go in the same place so you know exactly where to go to get them. So I'll choose File, go back to the desktop, which is where I saved that initially, pick my guiding document, open it up, voila. Next thing you need to do, though, is sometimes the guiding documents are not self-explanatory. So that's why we have the mandatory description box where you would write that this is your guiding document created by the Health Action Team with a vision and, let's say, our terms of reference, which is maybe for older students makes a bit more sense. Then our school team has a method of communication. So this would be similar. You'd go in, you'd find what type of method, say it's a website, you would choose the file to upload and you'd give a brief description. If you haven't done this, that's totally fine. You just hit no. Take a look at the level of student engagement. Were they present? Did they participate? Or did they really lead the activities? And you can see that the points increase because student independence and student leadership and student participation and to some degree independence is a core part of Healthy School Certification. So I'm going to say that students participated, maybe not led at this point, that they participated during activities, and I will save and return to dashboard. Now suddenly you can see my points have jumped quite high here based off the information I've just provided. And if I wanted to download this for my records or to share with my principal or to share with my public health or perhaps parents or community partners, I can click the download button and it's all right here. So I would recommend that prior to submitting for the February deadline on the 17th, that you do download all this. You'll have access to the download button after that date, but you will not be able to go back into these 3 steps. They will lock after that time. So maybe I'll do a quick pause and see if we have any questions at this point. Okay, so Jen, we have here, can a student be the school contact? So in order to be a school contact, essentially the school contact is the person who has registered the school. And that is the only person who can access a dashboard because we do need that one individual to kind of act as, I guess, the consistent person between OFIA certification and the school. And given that sensitive information is shared through that and that there is a degree of responsibility, it needs to be a staff member of the school. So I guess short answer is no, a student cannot be the school contact, but that doesn't mean a school or a student can't be a leader with the health action team. It just needs to be that the individual to whom the school is registered has to be a staff member of that school. Next question. For proof of method of communication, we use Facebook chat group. Do you want a screenshot of that? Fantastic. That sounds like a wonderful way. We saw a lot of those last year, and that's great. So you would just take a screenshot of that, and in the description, exactly what you just said, we use a Facebook chat group. Here it is, an example of that chat. And then we see Victor's responses here too. Are we able to upload documents directly from Google Drive, or do we need to download them to the desktop computer and upload them from there? That's actually a really good question. So it depends on how your computer's set up. Typically, the easiest, most straightforward way, and to make sure that the versions align, is to just download that from the Google Drive onto your desktop and then upload it from there. There have been the odd instance where we find that the actual format of a file, we're not able to open it on our end. So in order to avoid that, I would suggest saving, be it a Word document or Excel, whatever it is, directly to your desktop first. And I'm just pausing here for a moment. We see that people are typing, and then I'll get on to step 2. I also want to show you some of the support tools, which I think will really highlight what you can be using as evidence throughout this process. So maybe I'll have Jen monitor the chat for a moment, and I'll step right back into step 2 here. So, assess your school community needs and assets. Now this can be one of the more challenging ones, and not going to lie, one of the more time-consuming pieces, but it really can make quite a difference between what schools may have been doing in the past and really the degree to which they take Healthy Schools when they're following this process. So this is comprised of 2 main portions, your needs and your assets. On your screen here, we start out with your needs. So name of data source. This includes any student surveys you might create for your school, and we have some examples of those in our tools. You'd put in student survey, because that gives me the title of what it is. And then here, you don't need to go into great length, but what are your needs identified? That they want more time in the gym, perhaps, or to play outside. And perhaps they lack of feeling of connectedness to the school, and would like more game nights. So it can be really, that's not a word according to the internet, that's fine, but they would like more, it seems here, like interaction. So they like that sense of belonging and a little bit more physical activity too. So enough, you're really just summarizing here what it is that you're taking away from this to make the Healthy Schools activities you do that much more meaningful. So in this case, I'm going to say that it was both types of quantitative. So I had X number of students said something, and it's also qualitative where we had an open-ended question that allowed them to explain what they meant. The school team used data that was collected by students. So if my students created this survey, and submitted it to the other students, they're the ones that developed the survey, so they're the ones that collected the data. And whose voice does this represent? Well, quite apparent up here, it's a student survey. It's representing the voice of the students. So you'll see here that we are looking for a diversity of data collection and a diversity of voice too, because it is important to ensure that when you are doing your action plan later on, that it's representing the full school community as much as possible. So you can add another item and keep going until you have all your needs identified in there. Then we move on to assets. So I should mention that you get points for up to 3 data sources, and you get points for up to 30 assets. So assets can be big, small, they can be all types of things. For instance, a parent council, a huge asset for a school. So if they meet weekly, they fundraise, they provide input on programming perhaps, and they're the voice of the parents, which is huge, right? Not sure what's wrong with spelling a fundraise, but that's okay. So again, just brief description of that. Link this to the health topic. There's no points for this. This is just for you to know, well, where do we have assets? Which of the health topics are already represented? So here, really, it could end up being that they help support all of these areas, which I didn't have to check all of them. I could have just checked the one at the bottom, but I went above and beyond there. So like the needs, you can add another item and keep doing that. Again, you get points for the first 30 assets you add, but feel free to go above and beyond. It's a great way to capture all that information in the same place. So level of engagement. So who did I include in identifying these needs and assets? Was it just me as a school contact doing all this and sitting down and doing it? Did I include students in this? Was there a bit of a leadership role there? Did I reach out to other parents and family members, so school community members? Perhaps public health provided me with some data. They're fantastic for evidence around which health topics are appropriate and what your local area needs. And maybe there was someone in the community as well. So maybe I took a look and I spoke with recreation or before and after programs. So I check off how many people were included in that. And then I do have to check off, and this goes back to my earlier point about the school contact being a staff member. I do have to check off that I've entered all the data in accordance with my school board's privacy policy. So this is just making sure that you're not using full names if you're not allowed to, etc. Then I save and return to dashboard. So you'll notice that in that step, I'm not uploading anything. Everything that I'm submitting, all of my evidence is typed in or copied and pasted from the actual source itself. So I've jumped up here in my points. I would get even more if I kept adding these and I kept adding assets. And when I hit download, I start to see all of this in the same place. So again, this is a fantastic tool for sharing with your principal, sharing with other staff and the students, so you get a sense of what all your needs are and all your assets in one place. So I'll pause again, see if we have any questions. It looks like we do. So Sarah's joined us. If this is repetitive, my apologies. Oh, no apologies needed. I filled in something like this in the beginning of the year. Is it time to review it? Will I be sent a message or a link to do so? So if you filled in step 1 at the beginning of the year, that's fantastic. That means that you went through this exercise before even starting the rest of the process. So you don't need to add anything to it. Definitely, by all means, if more assets have come to light or they've changed or more needs have been identified or they have changed, you can go back in and redo that section. But this is just essentially it's one step that should happen at the beginning to just make sure that you're quite aware of your circumstance and your context when you're doing the other steps. Does that answer your question? If not, just let me know and I can dive into that a little deeper. Oh, fantastic. Okay, great. Excellent. And I see Victor's response there. Yes, you should have, if you saved it, it should be there. If it's not, please do contact us and we'll make sure that we get that all sorted out. Okay, so I'm going to dive into the last step here. Oh, the mouse has been taken away from me. We're looking at something else here. Oh, I see. I love technology. Anyway, thank you, Jan, for that. Okay, so I'm diving now into step 3. So I'm just going to reiterate that it's just these 3 steps that are due for the mid-year deadline of February 17th at noon, and that they will lock after that time. But then you can focus your attention on steps 4, 5, and 6 that aren't due until April 28th. Okay, so step 3, identify your priority health topic. Now this is by far one of the quickest steps, but can be the most challenging. So our school has identified priority health topic we will focus on during the school year. Seems simple, right? Not so much. Essentially, this involves your school team from step 1, then this involves looking at your needs and assets from step 2, and really being critical and thinking about what does my school need to focus on. And that's for this year too, so don't feel locked into this for the next 5-10 years. But right now, with the students I have here in the community as it is at this moment, what is it that we want to focus on? Keeping in mind that it's inevitable that you'll be looking at the other health topics too. It's really hard to just do one thing in isolation. And in fact, we encourage you to look at all the health topics too, but to do one comprehensively. So here, because there's a little red asterisk, you might come into this step, hit healthy eating, be like, oh, but I'm not sure, and you can't get out of it. You do need to pick something in order to save and return. But again, up until that deadline, you can go back and change it. So let's just say I've taken a look at everything, and it's really the sense of connectedness that seems to be missing. It's really the sense of self and how they fit in, etc. And that a lot of the assets I have that I'd like to utilize are maybe student leaders and some members of the community who want to feel connected as well. And maybe I end up picking growth and development out of this. Then I have to identify whether or not I looked at my needs. Well, I just talked about how I looked at my needs, and it's definitely reflected there. And then I need to mention that, or I need to, I guess, claim that I have done this using my assets too. So this really should be done in conversation with your full team, looking at those needs and assets. And that's why we ask at the bottom, who was involved in this decision making? Students definitely should be part of that as much as possible, school staff. And then this is where you may or may not be able to engage these other audiences. And if you aren't at this point, that's totally okay. This isn't about hitting every other step right now. This is about growing and building on it year after year. So I'll save that, return to my dashboard, go in here, see it all in one place. And again, I could save this if I want to or print this for future reference. And then voila, I've done everything that I need to do for the first deadline. Doesn't mean I can't go in here. I can go into my action plan and start planning. I'm sure you've already done some activities too that you want to be monitoring and recording here too. So don't feel like you have to wait to go into these. You can go into them at any time. What I will just urge you is do not hit this button that says final submission until you are complete. It will lock you out, and then you will have to email us and we will have to go to our very nice tech people who will have to unlock it for you. So I'll pause there again, see if there's any questions. Nope. Okay, great. So then I definitely want to take you over to our Healthy School support tools. So we have all these process steps in place, and we have all these tools available to support you in doing that work too. So we've divided this into essentially the different components of Healthy Schools. So the registration, which you're past that, you did that, fantastic. We have the webinars that I've mentioned already, so please do take a look at those if you're unsure of any individual questions. We have some information around the deadlines. So this is new this year, is this quick checklist for the mid-year deadline. If you're still not sure after this webinar, if you have everything, you can just click on that. And for each step, little check mark, making sure you've gone through each step of the process. Now again, you don't need to do everything. You don't have to hit yes for everything. It's about being honest of what it is you have done. And it's okay if you don't get all points at this point. We do have a more detailed checklist. This has screenshots. So if you want that little extra support in seeing on here what you'll see on your screen, then I'd recommend you use that one. We will be creating, so we're currently working on it right now, but we will be creating one for the final deadline as well. New this year, we also have exemplars. So again, got lots of questions last year. Well, does this count? What does this look like? How do I prove this? And so what we did is we actually had some schools from last year submit in examples of what they did so that you can see. So for step 1, this can be a guiding document, or it could look like this, or it can look like this. It doesn't mean you have to mimic any of these, but these are examples to help give you an idea of what communication could look like. So you had asked Jen before about the Facebook page. That's definitely a common way. So we have here Twitter, and Facebook's common. We have even what I would say old school meeting minutes as well, that can help identify that you've been communicating on an ongoing basis. So this goes through for every step, all 6 steps, and provides on average about 3 exemplars, 2 to 3 exemplars per what we call required or reporting requirements, so where you have to report on. Great. Then we get into the step-by-step supports. So for step 1, we have quite a lot. This is more about the team building. So how to engage the different audiences, what the role of different audiences are or may be for certification, team invitation agreements and agendas, notes, meeting trackers, and team check-in. So again, this is more of the administrative component. And then also here's where you'll find the OFIA Healthy Schools introductory video. That is one of the questions and worth points, along with a discussion after you watch the video with your team. Then we move on to step 2. So we have a list of data sources, because outside of a school survey that you might want to do, there's also some pre-done reports. So public health has quite a lot, so I would definitely reach out to them. But there's also reports done provincially that you might want to take a look at of all different health topics. So I'd recommend you take a look there and see if there's anything that might help support and add to your understanding of your needs. We also have OCPA Chronic Disease Prevention Infographics. So this is the Ontario Chronic Disease Prevention Alliance, of which OFIA plays a part. We are one of the organizations, and they have some infographics on different health topics and what that looks like in Ontario. So back in the day, you may have noticed that people had Healthy Schools, they had identification of needs templates that we've still included, but this is just for your own planning purposes. This is not, you're not going to upload this at all. This is just to help collect that information, perhaps in a way that's a little easier to do with a group. And we have the same for assets. So this is the actual template, and here's a sample, template and the sample. Then for step 3, we don't actually have any support tools, because again, this is about you sitting down with your team and making sure that you're identifying something that makes sense for your school. Any questions about the support tools? So I'm not going to go into many more, but they do have them for each one of the steps. So looking at Jen, no questions yet. That's fantastic. And so maybe, yeah, what I can ask now too is if you'd like to in the chat function, please do share any of the examples that you've used for reporting requirements, anything that you found worked or even that didn't work so well and you tried and was a waste of time. Please feel free, please do share that in the chat box now. Or even questions that you might have about, well, what does this actually look like? In the meantime, I'm going to go back to the dashboard and I'm going to demonstrate. So I want to, this is the dashboard. This is personalized and private just for your school. I'm going to return though to the Healthy School Certification main site. Take a look at, there's quite a few supports there as well. So this might be familiar. This is the main page where your blue button shows up to access your dashboard. But if you scroll down, there's tons of information here. So you still see the Healthy Schools video here, overview of the 6-step process. And then under step 3, we have different health topics. So you can click on these. So I'm clicking here on physical activity, and it gives you a bit better understanding of, well, if I'm tackling physical activity, what does that mean? What does that look like? What are some activities I can do? We link here to the Ministry of Education's Foundations for a Healthy School. You'll see that come in heavily in the later steps as we look at the different areas of a Foundation for a Healthy School. And this is how they list physical activity, which might seem quite familiar, or there might be some new pieces in here too. We have a physical inactivity infographic. And I see here that this is, click on this. Oh, great. Excellent, so you're sharing. Fantastic. So I'm just going to continue, but please continue to share that. Oh, I hit a button. Now I need Jen again. Fantastic. Thank you, Jen. Okay. We also have here related educational policies related to physical activity. A funding opportunities document. So this is fantastic. We have a lot of schools using this even who don't participate in certification, because what we do is annually we go through and we take a look at grants that are available for all different health topics and for healthy schools in general. And we link them here along with all the basic information about the region that it represents, how much, what you need to be doing essentially to get the funding, and what the deadline is if it's released at that time. So I'd urge you, if you are looking for additional funding for this, that there's quite a lot out there, and we do list it and update it annually. We also have quite a few OFIA resources that relate to each health topic. So if you click on that health topic, it will look a little different as we do tailor this specific to the health topic. So for instance, we've just launched, and you will have received the email blast, Ideas for Action. And this is a fantastic tool that just goes through tons of ideas of what you can do to bring physical activity, not just into your school, but the conversation around physical activity to your school. Make sure that it's top of mind, that you're having meaningful engagement around that. And the best of all is that this resource is meant for the students themselves. So this is meant to be given to your teams, young, so elementary, and the older students as well, so that they can take a look and identify what it is that they'd like to be doing. So for example, lots of information here. So we have energizers, we have Walking Wednesday, and we identify how much it might cost, who's involved, and how you could get creative with it. Now, this is a little different, physical activity. We do have a sponsor for physical activity who goes above and beyond and really helps support schools in making physical activity a reality in their school. So all schools who have registered will receive a Hero of Play kit regardless of their health topic. So it doesn't matter what you select in step 3, but they will receive a Hero of Play kit that helps them really start that conversation about being a hero of play in the school. That includes swag and materials to help really celebrate that component of a school community. For schools who select physical activity in step 3 based off their assets and needs, the Hero of Play component will supply them with some equipment to help make their action plan a reality. So I'll pause there. Any questions about these health topic pages? Taking a look. Oh, that's great. So, when are the kits from Hero of Play to arrive? So we wait until after the first deadline, and then they typically try and ship them up essentially before March break. So sometime between the week of, I'd say the last week of February, first week of March, probably closer to the first week of March. Okay, fantastic. Excellent. And it sounds here like a lot of schools have done surveys. We know that they're fantastic for really getting to the heart of what the students at the school right now are thinking. And that they really do, as Victor's demonstrated here, help you lead you to your priority health topic too. Great. Okay, so back to the website here. So we have what I've mentioned, the ideas for action. We have that for a variety of our health topics too. You'll see it listed under here, ideas for action. And then again, these specific different resources that really help support that one health topic. If by chance you don't find anything here or you want even more, we do have a database of resources. You see that at the bottom here that you can peruse. I do want to mention that these are third-party resources, so we have not necessarily vetted and we do not endorse these in any way, but they're there as a resource to use at your own discretion and to help direct you in different ways to seeing what's out there in the province and what's available to help support you. Fantastic. Okay, so at any time if you get lost, the way that I get back is I always hit this giant button at the top here. As long as I'm logged in, it takes me back to the main page and that blue button should show up over here. Just waiting. There we go. Great. Last year, if you were a participant, you'll know that we had infographics that supported, essentially showed us who was registered, the activities, etc. What we're doing right now is we're rejigging this whole landing page so that we can better highlight some of our success stories and those infographics as well. So right now you'll find that information here, but we are working on this. Will start to look very new very soon, and hopefully start sharing more of those success stories that really help motivate different school communities. Great. And that takes us kind of to the end of our, let's say, formal component here. Maybe while I have you on, I'll say the line, but while I have you here, I want to take you to our certification hashtag. So as I mentioned, HSCertES, please use this whenever you are tweeting out, because that allows us to have a sense of what you're doing. And really, it's overwhelmingly positive to see all the great things that are happening in schools across the province. So you see that here from all over the place. Elementary, secondary, lots of student leadership, lots of snow, and it's fun too. And so encouraging students too, depending obviously privacy, restraints, but encouraging your students to use this and share what they're doing. So we get that component of student voice in this. And I know one school has a grade 5 student who stepped up, who's quite interested in doing this, and has been leading the, I guess, the social media, let's say, for their HAT team. Okay, so that essentially brings us to the end. I'm going to take a moment. Just going through here. I had these in case the webinar, in case we couldn't do the share screen, I wanted to make sure I had images for you. So you'll see here our contact information, the email there, Twitter and Facebook. You can always email us, and we're here to help. And then if you found this useful, hopefully you did, we're looking to do something similar April 28th, well, around that time for the April 28th deadline, so the dates to be determined. And then, as I mentioned, we do have the webinars for each step. If this wasn't exactly what you were thinking and there's other things that would make this more helpful, please do, we're going to put up the survey in a moment, please do let us know because we want to make this as useful for you. And so I'm clicking on the survey link here. So this is what this will look like when you hit the survey. Oh, great. No questions right now. It's been helpful. Fantastic. I'm glad. Well, thank you, everyone. And a special thank you to Victor, who has a lot of experience to share, which is really helpful to get an on-the-ground perspective. Oh, fantastic. Yes. I feel like Victor knows the guidebook better than we do, which is great. Wonderful. Okay, so on that note, I think we will sign off. And thank you again for spending your Tuesday evening with us. We hope you all have a fantastic night.